G'day folks, hope I've left enough gap at the front. As you can guess, we're travelling along the road and not at a terribly great pace. Sorry about a show last night. Unfortunately, I'm guessing that all the New South Welshmen took up all the bandwidth. The circus, of course, played out last night. Congratulations if you followed it to New South Wales. Bit ho-hum, really. Not terribly thrilled about it. I'm not sure if you have the access to the Tucker Carlson network or not, but if you happen to have that access, can I suggest to you that you go and have a look at his speech from the Canberra Hyatt on Tuesday. The Tucker Carlson network have posted it. It is, aside from everything else he's been doing around the country, this was an opportunity, I guess, for people to ask him questions, although the people that got to ask him questions were the media. And my God, Canberra's best came out to play. They got themselves away from the bar at the National Press Club just long enough to bring themselves down to the Hyatt and publicly humiliate themselves. However, he did say a lot of brought a lot to the party in his speech that and afterwards in the Q&A, where he doesn't speak about Australian politics because he's unaware of the nuances of it. He doesn't know the playing field or anything else about it. And quite rightly, he believes that it's sort of like the height of rudeness to walk into somebody else's country and start telling them about their own politics. So he has, in his chats that I've seen at least, not directly spoken about politicians or anything else. However, in the chat that he had in Canberra over lunch on Tuesday, he did talk about our media and used examples who stood up and asked him stupid, ridiculous, leftish questions, not from journalists, but from brainwashed lemmings who are always looking to frame their questions in a certain way. So if you get the access to go and have a look at it, I will attempt to cut some of it out. I don't know about the legalities of using it or not, but as long as we credit them, it should be pretty fine. I don't know about tonight. I'm meant to be helping somebody out, and I'm running currently about 3 hours late to that particular appointment, and the traffic is moving at the moment at about 15 kilometres an hour. Not helpful. So if there is a show tonight, it's probably not going to be at 6, but there is a fair bit of interest floating around the countryside. Of course, Julian Assange is back in the country, been very quiet, obviously spending time with his family and getting reacclimatized, I dare say, not just to Australia, but to freedom. The full extent of his plea bargain has been released. Now, if you want to go and have a look at it, I'm not sure if Vince has posted it up yet, but it will be posted, if it isn't already, at vofhq.com. Now, this is quite a lengthy document, and it sets out in great detail the terms of the plea deal. Obviously, Assange got his freedom, but what did the Americans get in return? That's the interesting bit. So if we were hoping that Wikileaks was going to continue in its historical form, if you like, releasing large amounts of information that would otherwise remain hidden from us, particularly from the trove of documents that WikiLeaks already control, that's not going to happen. I don't think Julian Assange will be allowed to set up and run anything like WikiLeaks. I haven't finished reading the document. In fact, I've only read a couple of the pages. But I do know that he's had to hand over. You might recall when all this happened with him, 14 odd years ago, he made it very clear to the powers that be, including Mike Pompeo, head of the CIA at the time, who publicly said they wanted to kill him, and by him I mean Assange. When the WikiLeaks documents became, were released, they were put out in tranches, a few 100,000 at a time. And there were select groups of media organisations that Julian Assange believed he could trust, doing real investigative journalism on them. However, he was smart enough not to give them everything, and he was smart enough not to give them complete access to everything. He was also smart enough to back everything up, and he had a number of encrypted keys that, should he be killed, be attacked, be whatever, these keys would be triggered, and all of the information, particularly surrounding Podesta and the Clintons, would be released. Now, this is in great part why he has spent so much time in jail, because the information that he released, the infamous Clinton emails, the infamous Podesta emails, are shocking for a variety of reasons. They show levels of corruption inside the Obama-Clinton administration, when she particularly was Secretary of State. They show absolute evil with some of the transcript that I've seen from John Podesta. It opens up a treasure trove of prosecutable evidence against the Podesta brothers, particularly in regards to child trafficking. And there is a rather interesting side story to Podesta and children. Chester Bennington from Blink 182, who committed suicide some time ago, is believed to be linked to Podesta as a victim. Now, if that's true, then the other stories about Chester might also be true, in that he isn't dead. He has been taken under the White Hat wing. Highly possible. I discount nothing. The world is a very, very, very weird place. Certainly nothing like what we believe it is. And the last couple of days I've been having some conversations with folks about, I guess it is the kettle drum that we live in, because those of us that believe what we believe, we don't watch mainstream media. I've just spent, interestingly, I've spent 2 hours on the phone today to a mainstream media colleague, if you like, where we were discussing the nature of the business, and he's involved in something that is not mainstream media anymore, but still very mainstream-ish, if I can say that. And we talked about what the Voice of Freedom is doing and how we are very not in the mainstream media side of things. He believes that the wheel is turning, that mainstream media is more and more starting to open up to some of those ideas that we've been discussing for some time. And obviously I've been poleaxed out of the industry for speaking as loudly as I have. He did bring up a few interesting points about that, and maybe the wheel will turn. We'll see what happens. But I was encouraged to hear him, who ordinarily I wouldn't put on our side, very encouraged to be hearing from him, to wanting to learn more about what we talk about, and trying to delve a little deeper to try and find answers to some of those questions. And one of those that I raised with him today was about our last federal election writ, which was not signed by the Governor-General. It was signed by a no-name Liberal backbencher who nobody's ever heard of, but is known as the Special Minister, I think of State, but the Special Minister. So how can a Liberal Party minister sign an election writ, signing it being authorising it? Just can't happen. So he found that rather interesting, and we talked about the story of Ben Fordham as well, and I brought that up with him and never heard another word from Ben. So he now knows that our mainstream media doesn't want to talk about a lot of the things that we want to talk about. He probably thought they were interested, but what he's working on could work out that they are interested. So we might be able to expand a little bit out of our kettle drum and get to a new audience one day. We'll see what happens. Can't do it without your support though. And so thanks for popping in, thanks for commenting, thanks for giving us a thumbs up, a like, a subscribe, because without that, even though the algorithm on this particular channel is working against us in every possible way, every little bit helps. And we've got to keep pushing back, folks. We've got to stand up for ourselves. And this is a lot of what Tucker Carlson was talking about in his speeches that he's been giving around the country for the last week or so with Clive Palmer. If you are still keen and haven't seen him yet, there are 2 shows left. One is in Sydney, one is in Melbourne. I think Sydney's Saturday, might be Friday, and Melbourne I think is next Monday. I would be very surprised if Julian Assange isn't sitting down with Tucker Carlson anytime between now and Friday and discussing his current situation. The terms of his plea deal do not limit him talking about anything that has happened to him. What they do is limit his ability to use any information that Wikileaks still might have against the government. The terms of that document are to release those kill switches. So he has given the kill switch details to the Americans. So they now control the release of those emails, should it ever be required. And he's also either promised to destroy or to give complete access to the Americans of all the WikiLeaks servers. So I think WikiLeaks, as we know it, is probably going to disappear. Sadly, that probably means that the hundreds of thousands of files that have already been downloaded from WikiLeaks and disseminated around the world, if you haven't got a hard copy of them, every chance they're going to disappear too. So if you do have those, and I know it's probably a stupid thing to have sitting on your computer. When are you ever going to look at hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of emails or thousands of emails? But I can tell you, I've had all the WikiLeaks files downloaded and accessible now for got to be 2 years, and they are an amazing reference tool. You can type into the search engine, use some keyword searches, and you can find every instance of these words being used in any of the documents. And it does narrow down the search sometimes. I find the documents sometimes very hard to read because they're out of sequence. They come in tranches that may or may not be related to each other. You do get email chains in there, but sometimes you don't get the replies. The nice thing about it is there's nothing in there that's redacted, so you get a pretty good understanding. And this is of course why the Americans were so pissed off. They were embarrassed publicly because a couple of gung-ho military types in a gunship, a helicopter gunship, who were supremely trained in how to use weapons systems. Unfortunately, they were very poorly trained in how to identify weapons systems in their opponents, because the guy sitting in the front seat of that helicopter identified a 900mm camera lens hanging over a guy's shoulder as some kind of an RPG or rocket-propelled grenade. And that's why they decided to kill well, everybody around that street corner. And then when a small van came in to try and help, kill everybody, including the 2 children that were inside that. The Americans were embarrassed. They were embarrassed about that because it goes to show that they're not perfect. But they were embarrassed about a lot more than that. Because aside from the video and the reports on incidences like that, and there was more than that singular one I've just mentioned, there were also all the Hillary Clinton emails, all the Podesta emails, all the Obama emails, all the secret shit they always thought they were going to get away with. And Chelsea Manning had it all. So Chelsea Manning is definitely the one that shared all that information with Julian Assange. Yes, Chelsea Manning was working for the NSA at the time, and was found guilty of stealing state secrets and, handing them on to media and all that. I think he did 7, or she did 7 years, and was pardoned 7 years ago. However, Julian Assange, because he refused to give up the kill switches, was kept in jail for whatever reason. Was he kept in jail? I don't think the bloke that we saw get off the plane the other day spent 5 years in Belmarsh jail, put it that way. There was probably somebody there. And certain reports indicate that, and this is certainly, I tend to believe this, I don't ever think that Julian Assange was ever inside a British jail. I think the version of Assange that we saw dragged out of the Ecuadorian embassy was a body double or clone, and if that one went to jail, the story goes that it was killed in jail in January of 2020. It upset the deep state tremendously when there was another clone put back in to replace it. Now, these are some of the stories I've been reading in the last 24 hours about Julian Assange's rise back up. I would also note it was interesting that he was released on the 24th of the 6th, 2024, 666, a gematria date. And, well, we haven't heard anything from him yet. And I think that's probably a good sign rather than a bad one. I guess that if I was in his position and I wanted to talk, he may not want to. I doubt it. But if I was in his position and Tucker Carlson was in town, then yes, I would probably avail myself of that opportunity. And I would expect that will be the first and possibly the last we see of him for some time. Wants to stay in Australia and wants to reconnect with the family, apparently. That'd be great. Australia would love to have him. Obviously, while we haven't heard it from him yet, we've heard third-hand commentary that he's thanking Albanese for saving his life. I wonder if anybody's played back any of the clips of Albo saying, basically, screw him. He made his bed, he can lie in it. The politics behind his release also seem rather unclear. Obviously, the Australian government is holding its hand up and saying, we did this, we did this, we did this. But the fact of the matter is the Australian government, successive Australian governments, have done nothing to try and help Assange for years. 4 years. He was never charged. He never committed a crime inside America, was never charged inside America, never charged or committed a crime inside of England, and yet was managed to be locked up in England for 5 years, and the, was it 7 years or 8 years before that, in the Ecuadorian embassy. And what did Australia do about it? Absolutely nothing. Didn't protect its citizen in any way, shape or form. Now, Tucker Carlson says that the Poms had had enough of this, the Americans had had enough of this, and the Australians were doing nothing. So the deal was put forward by the Poms to the Americans. The Americans need it off their plate. There is no political mileage in Assange anymore in the US. All his power was with Hillary Clinton and Obama, or at least being able to attack them and prove, and that can still happen. I think you might find that if he is working with anyone, it will be an investigatory group that I would think at some point would be in a position to proffer charges against people. And I think he would be a very useful person to have in such a group. But we'll wait and see. It's all speculation. And while I'm driving around in this sort of traffic, I'm going to speculate my ass off. Just letting you know. I do that. I better get off this and go and sort out my my exits here. So, yeah, there's a bit more to talk about with Assange, but we'll try and get that out tonight. Should I be able to get home in time to do that? If you have the opportunity and you are interested, Ainsley Bullion and their 1/10 Ainsley rounds are going off, can I just say. I think the price at the moment is $290 for 40 of them. They only come in a roll of 40. If you're interested, let me know, but you can buy them yourself through ainsley.com.au, and they are going off. Why? Well, because there's a lot of uses for that little round. Many people are finding that businesses are very happy to accept it, and at the moment I think it's valued, I want to say around $7.20 on the Ainsley website. So that's a really easy way of getting rid of the plastic money in your pocket and having something of actual value. The markets are shaky, folks. The Saudis have finally come out and said that they are not taking the US dollar anymore in regard to oil. They are happy to sell it to you if you want to pay the Chinese yuan or if you want to pay in gold, but they will not accept US dollars anymore, and it's now public knowledge. They've come out and stated it. This has got a lot of economists in America really, really worried. Mind you, if they're any kind of a decent economist, they would have been really, really worried for quite some bloody time, because all the signs have been there for a long time at just how bad this situation is likely to get financially. So the markets are being artificially propped at the moment. When will that bubble burst? Nobody knows. But I do know this. Super is underperforming, and, well, underperforming for you and performing really, really well for the people that get their fees out of your super for managing it. That part of the business is working really, really well. So any money that you may have grown in your super account is being raped by these bastards for fees every year, and they're hidden fees that they don't tell you about when they sign you up. About time you started looking after your own financial future, your own personal wealth. And the only way to do that, or the best way, not the only way, the best way to do that, in my opinion, at the moment, is a self-managed super fund. So if you're interested in that, Cass and the team at Freedom Financial Solutions, the best in the country at setting all that up, and would be very happy to have you as part of it. You can email me, carl@vofhq.com, and I will put you in touch with Cass or Mary Jane. There will be a new Q&A session for Cass coming up, hopefully Friday. I think we'll put it up for Friday Financials on the FBN channel on YouTube. And of course, if you would like to be a part of that, if you've got some questions, then we can probably help you out with a link to that too. Just email me, carl@vofhq.com, and I'll make sure that we get a link sent to you so you can be part of that as well. All right, folks, I'm going to fight my way off down to an exit down here somewhere and see whether or not I can't help a mate. And I will talk with you guys a little bit later on. Have a great day. Don't do anything I wouldn't. So far, the dickheads on the road have been pretty good. Hooroo.